Hello everybody, this is Kira and I am here with another character suggestion. Now I want to give a warning about this video because it's going to be dedicated to just one show and the characters within it, but I honestly don't see these characters getting into the actual game, unlike my other video where I was putting out more ideas and they had a better chance because they were all Cartoon Network shows. As you can tell, well, I didn't really put a thumbnail for this. I'm using my regular ones. But this one features characters more from the Turner Broadcasting, so they're going to have a harder time. For that reason, I don't want people to think I'm making this as a joke. I legitimately thought about these characters and the roles that they can play. It's just that I'm not putting in much hope for them getting into the game as the other one, but it's still such a fun concept that I still want to talk about this. So we are discussing Captain Planet and the Planeteers, which is an 80s show. Some of you should know about it, or at least know about it in reference. I don't know how many people actually found old videos and watched it. I did that. I was very curious about him when he appeared as a playable character in Cartoon Network's Punch Time Explosion, and so I wanted to do a little bit of watching of his show because, I don't know, I was just interested. The show is still rough, but it's an 80s show. It's not going to obviously age that well. I mean, we look at shows now, you can tell some of them aren't going to age well. But Captain Planet survives in a pop culture kind of sense. So he has that going for him. So the idea was originally brought up on the forums under the thread Guest Characters by Cyber, and I'll put a link in the description so that you can look at the thread itself. They had put other characters in there, but Captain Planet stood out the most to me because it had the best possibility of being in the game if it went that way. So how would Captain Planet work in there, you might be asking, because he's the champion of Earth. Well, there's several things. So to get you quickly sped up on what it is, Captain Planet and the Planeteers, that's the show's name, focuses on 5 kids trying to help out the world and, help people clean it up, which went against a lot of other environmentally shows where all the focus would be on Captain Planet. The writers didn't want that, and they wanted the kids to be the ones to be focused on, to inspire other kids really to change the way the environment works out. So there's 5 kids. You have Kwame, who has the power over Earth. You have Wheeler, who has power over fire. You have Linka, power over wind. Guy, power over water. And Mati, he has power over heart. They get this power through the rings from Gaia, who is the manifestation of the Earth. And she's centered out in Hope Island. Now, for Fusion Fall, Hope Island isn't going to be a place that people can go to. It's sort of like the Themyscira of Wonder Woman's lore, where, men aren't allowed to go there, and even normal day-to-day people can't go there. It's strictly for the Amazons. There has been a couple exceptions to the rules. A lot of it depends on who you're watching, whether it's the comic books or the videos, or not videos, the movies or cartoons, and it depends on the writers. But the general census is the Themyscira is for the Amazons, Hope Island is for Gaia and the Planeteers. So that's where Gaia will be. The reason why she'll be there is because as the manifestation of Earth, she feels the pain that pollution does to the Earth. So for Fusion Fall, she's affected by the fusion matter, which has been addressed as being harmful. We've already seen the effects in infected zones, where gravity is suddenly changed. The laws no longer apply there, so they can affect gravity and the laws of physics, so it's damaging the Earth. So Gaia is greatly hurt by this, and so she sends out the 5 kids first to go and find the source and clean it up. So the kids leave, and they're now going to be in the mainland of the world, the Fusion Fall map. They try to summon Captain Planet when they realize it's just too big, and of course they see the monsters, and as powerful as the rings are, they're not real weapons, so they can't do too much. They'll get overpowered, so they try to call on Captain Planet. He does show up, but he's hurt, so he can't really fight because the fusion matter is just too much for him, so he retreats back into his form. Upon the first encounter, the kids next door can help them, because I figure that they're somewhere out when they land, they're somewhere out in the wilds. There were a lot of kids next door members running around, so a team of operatives could have found them and beat up the fusions for them. They explained what these creatures are, that they're the creatures from space. It should be mentioned that they've never encountered these guys until the mainland, because Hope Island is protected from Gaia's powers, so the aliens could not invade the island. So the kids now are on the land. They have a source of what's causing the problem. It's the fusion monsters and Fuse himself. They learn that there's a war going on between Earth and Fuse. Earth is being affected. The people are being affected. Superheroes are said to be affected by this, that they're weakened. This is, of course, a response so that kids can play the game. Otherwise, it's not much fun if Blossom and Bubbles are at full power and they can just go beat them up. Enough about that. More about our Captain Planet storyline. So, knowing that there's a source, knowing what the problem is, they then dedicate themselves to cleaning up the Earth, which is in line with their line of work, because they can't really just go to these kids and say, hey, we gotta stop the fusions. Everybody knows that. Dexter has already been preaching that since the start. Hey, we need people to sign up, fight the fusion. So they can't really go and have a teaching moment like the show is meant to be. So instead, they decide that they're going to join the SACT, or SACT, to clean up. So their role in the game, they would be NPCs. I'm still debating if they should actually have some missions. I haven't gone that far if they should or not. I saw them more as in the infected zones. So you know how there's SACT members everywhere in the infected zones, or at the start and the finish, because they have you do the races. Well, that's where the kids would be instead. They would be in the infected zone, and they would have you do the races to help clean up the worst area, because the infected zones are the worst area, so why not counter there? They won't be in every infected zone. The SACT will still be there. They will just take over certain ones, and here's the ones that I have for them. They're not final, because some of them can change, but the ones I have set out for them so far is Kwame would be in Really Twisted Forest, because his element is Earth, so the forest is very earthy. He could have also been at the temple, but I decided Mati should be there, because he's more into that sort of things, and I think it'd be fun to have a character over there. I guess if Drew's over there, maybe they could interact. Wonder where Drew is. Yeah. If she's over there, that would help him, because he has a way with animals. She's looking for cryptoids? I think it's crypts. I know it's something like that. But she's looking for creatures who are basically animals, so it could help out. Guy would be over at Bravo Beach Infected Zone, Or, since this would be in Legacy, she could be at the aquarium. Both of them play into her nature of water, and she's also a huge fan of sea creatures. She's really into that. She's very protective of them. The aquarium would make sense for that, especially since Fusion's sticky beard is over in that area, causing trouble for the sea creatures. She would be offended by it, and we want to go deal with it. Wheeler and Linka would be the only two in the same area because they have a thing in the show. So it's sort of like how number 4 followed number 3 to the outpost. I almost forgot what that was called. But he followed her to the outpost. Wheeler would do the same for Linka, and they're also can be in 2 places. I have them at the park because of the fissure, how greatly honestly, the Earth was greatly affected there. Those 2 would be over in that area trying to help clean it up since they see it as one of the worst areas. Or they could go into the fire pits, which would play on Wheeler's fire abilities. And Linka would have followed him because she doesn't trust him to survive a lava pit area by himself. So those are ideally where they would be. Thinking about it as I'm talking about it, they could have 1 or 2 missions each having to deal with the infected zone itself. My only downside is that their whole thing would be to collect fusion matter, which they're already doing as a race. So the only thing I can see their missions really being about is maybe some of the villains. Now, the villains wouldn't show up, same as Gaia doesn't show up, and even Captain Planet wouldn't get a model because it defeats the purpose of the kids being there, because if he got his powers back, Fuse would be beat down. Unless Captain Planet shows up at the end to help out the player, go and beat Fuse in the lair, which actually would be cool. He'd appear just like he does in Punch Time Explosion right at the last moment. But the villains of the show would not get any looks. They would be behind the scenes helping out the fusions. They'd be spreading chaos, and who knows, maybe the Planeteers decide, hey, can you go check this out, make sure they're not causing trouble, and you would more or less just see the effects of their meddling, and you would go and deal with it. It kind of reminds me of Habitat Homes, where you would put up the flyers and someone said they were there and you would just change it, but you didn't really see the asset change. So that's honestly all I have for the Planeteers. As I said, I don't think they'll get into the game. But I wanted to try my hand at giving them a reason in the game and giving them a storyline and a place. So that's honestly all I have for them. Like, I've been thinking about this for a while because it's not a terrible show to be added into the game, and honestly the characters don't make a huge impact that it takes away from the story. Their characters would complement the story because they're in these infected zones, taking the place of just a SAT. I'm looking at the paper and my mind's going blank. It's right there. So that's the only way I could see them having them a fighting chance. Like if I went to the devs and said, let me have a fighting chance for them, this would be a point I would bring up, is that they technically don't take away from the story, nor do they add such a huge impact that it would alter the course of the story. They can easily slide in and just be in an infected zone, and their whole deal is just cleaning up that infected zone, and maybe having 1 or 2 missions having to deal with the villains. But honestly, we don't even have to include the villains. We could easily say they attempted to join up with Fuse but has been shot down, just like every other villain has been shot down, and they opted to just hide off until this whole war is over, and then they'll jump back in. the villains aren't really important in this story as they are in the show, where their actions are meant to be rebooted. The whole point of the show is you wanted to stop, the Planeteers had to stop them to save the Earth. So that's all I got for them today. I know. If they got into the game, if they did, it would be really nice, because you know what, they're pretty old. I know a lot of the members aren't that old, but there's a couple of us, and like I said, maybe you went back and saw the show, and maybe you liked it, and would think it'd be cool. It would be kind of cool to get a show that from the 80s, because so far the only old ones would be like Dexter and Johnny. Really, Dexter and Johnny, they're like two of the oldest, because they were the first two, aside from that kind of cartoon block. What's a cartoon? Oh, but that's going to be honestly enough rambling for me today. I hope you guys all enjoyed my attempt at a storyline for these potential characters. If you have anything to add, rebuke, maybe you just think you have a totally other way that this can go, feel free to comment. I would like to hear what people have to say about the matter, because maybe you'll open my eyes to another route that they can take. And maybe I can come back and revise this and do add-ons, or even get some of you to talk to me about potential characters. Like I said, I still have my special guest. That series is still going on. I'm just waiting right now. But we can talk about this. If you have a show that you really think that you could state your case for on why they'd be a great inclusion, we could totally do an episode dedicated to that. If just send me a PM or a message or something, and we can discuss this, and we can have a video about it, because I would like to talk to people. You know, sometimes I see an idea and I don't like it, but then someone vouches for it and gives it a chance, and you know what? I really enjoy it. I think it could work. So that's going to be enough for me today. I've run out of ideas. I'm now rambling. As you can tell, I'm rambling. I'm always doing that. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this. I love doing this, and I love getting feedback, because I don't know. I love when imagination and creativity is shown around, and I like hearing people fight for a show they like, or fight for characters they like, and just try to give them a chance. But that will be it for me today. I've said all I can say, and I don't want to extend this any further and bore you all with my boring voice. So thank you guys for taking the time to look at this sorta, not sort of character suggestion, and I will catch you guys all on the forums. Bye-bye.